to keep calm, or else they'll start talking trash about how I cuss all the time. And honestly, I think it's a true art form, and I love the F word.
Oh,
she is beautiful.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's your city councilor, Tanya Fernandez Anderson, defending the use of F-bombs. I got to tell you, my poor father who passed away recently would be rolling over. He does. When I was a kid, dropping F-bombs. It was something you didn't do. So I can't believe we have an elected official who thinks, yeah, I use the F-bomb and I'm proud of it.
Mom always said, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. All right, everybody, thank you for stopping by and welcome to the BPPA podcast. We call it Answering the Call. My name is Jamie Kenneally, alongside, as always, BPPA President Larry Calderone. Larry, as we always do, we start the show with love for the hardworking men and women of the BPD, who, as we know, make Boston one of the safest big cities in America. And, of course, you and I both know that. But how about a quick shout out to our hardworking men and women of the BPD?
Yeah, like always, every time we come on the air, there's a great story to tell day in, day out. Our men and women are working at 100% capacity, and they do a great job. But just this past weekend, Sunday night, we had a handful of young officers from B3 and Mattapan that affected a dual firearm arrest. They arrested an individual that had 2 loaded firearms in the vehicle, and I won't give too much in detail, but what a great show of professionalism by a handful of officers over in Mattapan that weekend, where they were able to stop the vehicle, arrest the individual, de-escalate the situation, and make sure that everybody went home safe. So just one of the things that comes to mind immediately. But again, every day and night that the men and women are out there, they're great.
But here's the thing too, Larry, and you said it, but I'll just kind of echo it. Time and time and time again, gun arrests. Officers courageously arresting those folks who think it's okay to carry guns in the city without incident, without injury to the arrestee and to our officers. It certainly underscores the professionalism of our men and women.
Sure, and this is a great incident to talk about because when you're talking about gun arrest and violence, what you do see on BPD News all the time is our great gang unit. I mean, the gang unit here in the Boston Police Department is fantastic. Their stats are through the roof. They do a great job every day and night they're out there. But it's also the men and women in uniform in the districts. I mean, gunplay isn't within the specialized unit in and of itself. These are hardworking men and women in all stations in the city, from East Boston to West Roxbury to the other side of Mattapan. It's just hardworking men and women doing their job and staying safe.
Team effort, and I agree, Larry, all across the city, some great work being done. Let's get right to it. Of course, the big issue, as it has been and remains, the contract. Status of the contract, Larry, at present, I think we're 2.5 years without a deal. You know, some people say, what's the big deal? But 2.5 years, no deal, that's an issue.
Yeah, 2.5 years, long time to wait. And you know, there are some reasons for it. As we know, Mayor Walsh moved on. Mayor Janey took over for a short time. Mayor Wu's been here about a year. I give her the kudos for meeting quickly and following through for the first several months with us, having just short of a dozen meetings. But everybody knows what happened. The meetings came to a stalemate. We are at impasse. They don't want to talk about higher wages and better benefits for the members for the changes that they're looking for. So we filed at the end of the year a joint labor management, the state committee that takes over collective bargaining in situations like this.
They step in, help resolve.
Yeah, they help resolve what can be done at the table. So what we're looking for is, better yet, where we are in the process is we're waiting for joint labor management to take jurisdiction over the collective bargaining negotiations. What that means is they'll do an informational look back within the city and the union leadership. They'll see what was on the table. They'll see what was discussed. They will then bring it forward to their own committee, which you and I thankfully sit on the police side of the table. They will take jurisdiction in the matter. They will assign a mediator. We'll go into some mediation in hopes to hammer out as many of the issues as we can that's on the table. And at the end of the day, if we can't, we will move on to what's called a 3A hearing, where we actually hammer down the topics that will go in front of an independent arbitrator.
So a couple of quick things. City has yet to respond. We filed with JLMC, asked them to take jurisdiction. City hasn't responded yet. Assuming they do, you just said a 2-step process. So JLMC will try to mediate. If that fails, we go to arbitration. Now, the big question too, we go to arbitration. You know, the decision comes down. My understanding, Larry, it's a binding decision, right?
It is a binding decision. Just quickly, it's a 3-step process: mediation, 3A hearing to get the topics, and then the independent arbitrator. And each one takes a little bit of time.
Yep.
But yes, it is binding. The city council does get to vote on it. And one of the biggest questions I think you just asked
that's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
A lot of guys and girls out there, concerned that, okay, all this time we finally get a deal done. Can the city council say, you're out of luck, it ain't happening, and blow the whole thing up?
So legally, the process is once the arbitrator comes back with his or her award, it is incumbent upon the mayor legally to advocate for it. It is her job, as well as ours as the leadership, to go to the city council and get the votes necessary, which is the majority, 7. To get the majority of the councilors to pass the funding of the award. Now, they can vote it down. And I've watched this movie play out a lot.
Before you go there, so majority votes, obviously 13 city councilors, 7 vote for it, we get the deal. If they try to blow it up, if they say it ain't going to happen, what recourse do we have?
Oh, if they try to blow it up and they vote it down, we're going right to court the next morning. I mean, the heavier fight is on at that point. Here we are battling, negotiating, trying to get a deal done, try to get better benefits. We understand there's changes that the mayor wants to make, but you know what? You don't make changes in collective bargaining without giving benefits for it, whether it's wages or benefits. It is a quid pro quo system.
Yep.
Sorry, couldn't get it
give
out
and take. That's exactly what it is. They get some, we get some.
But if the city council is going to grandstand and they're going to pretend that it's not good in the end and they're going to vote it down just to show their power, let them do so. We'll be in court 9 a.m. the next morning.
Height of disrespect, not to mention the height of hypocrisy, given the fact they recently gave themselves a 20% pay hike. I hope they don't do that, for the love of you-know-who. Please, I hope they don't do that.
I would think they don't.
Switching topics now. Legislatively, we got some things to be happy about. As we all know, when a police officer shot in the line of duty and can no longer return to the job as a result of a permanent injury, an effort is made to pass what we call a disability pension bill, in which the injured officer receives 100% disability pension. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's an importantly, a hugely important gesture. We were lucky enough, Larry, to see the passage of 7 bills for our officers, 1 for an EMT, and 2 for 2 outside agencies, officers from outside agencies. How important is this legislation?
It's one of the most important things we can do for our members that are disabled in the line of duty. We're putting 28% more pay back in their pocket, providing for their family members. And the stand I like to take when I'm talking to the House of Reps or when we're talking to roll calls and members is, this is one of the most important things that we can do for the members and their family that are hurt in the line of duty.
It is.
What we're doing is making them whole. We're making their life easier. And we're telling them, you go out there, you be a professional, you work hard every night, and God forbid something like this happens to you, your union is behind you. Your leadership that has made the contacts, made the relationships on Beacon Hill, we can get things done. And that's exactly what we did. 10 bills, 100%. 8 for our members, 2 for other members of the Mass Coalition of Police, working together on Beacon Hill, getting it through the House, getting it to the Senate, and having the governor sign it on his last day before he left speaks volumes in a 5-week period.
Yep. A lot of people to thank, and I couldn't agree with you more, Larry. It is the most important piece of legislation and one of the most important things we can do as a union. So really happy for all the officers who received that disability pension benefit. You can't overstate how important that is.
Prime example of why we're involved in politics on Beacon Hill, Jamie.
Yeah, well, I learned that lesson, I'll tell you. Okay, switching topics. Dress uniforms, Larry. I mean, talk about long overdue. I think for the first time I thought decades. You just told me first time in the history of the department, our officers finally have a dress uniform. How did it happen?
I mean, first time that I'm aware of, somebody could correct me, but I'm unaware of the department ever having a unified dress uniform provided to the membership. Everybody knows how we look historically while we're out there at funerals, parades, etc. But how did it happen, Jamie? Through my leadership, the leadership of the BPPA, we put it to the House of Reps. The House of Reps agreed. We worked with then Commissioner Gross to secure funding to purchase these dress jackets and dress pants from Blower. And that has continued on with now Commissioner Cox. We are in receipt down at the BPPA of all of the uniforms, all being superior officers, detectives, patrol officers. We have them all. They have been disseminated over the last few weeks. We are almost done getting them all out to the patrol force. I'm happy to report that we did naturally the BPPA members first.
Yep.
We're getting them all out to the rank and file. Anyone that was fitted will be receiving that uniform. And right after we're done doing that, we will then get the detectives off to them and the superiors off to them for them to get to their members. So very proud day, very proud to have something like this.
Yeah, it's a huge achievement. And again, I mean, in terms of a spirit of corps, this is all about enhancing a spirit of corps, enhancing professionalism, and just making, I think we were saying earlier, look good, feel good. I mean, what has the reaction been? Because you guys have been passing out the uniforms for the past, couple of weeks or so. Reaction, what has the reaction been from the officers?
Honestly, ecstatic would be a word that comes to mind. I can't tell you how many times people are saying, hey, thank goodness you stepped up. Thank goodness the union did this, because quite frankly, the department never has. And whether it's about money or whatever the sticking point might have been with various commissioners, various mayors, the bottom line is our men and women, they feel good now. They look good.
Yep.
It makes them want to put that dress uniform on. We attend these special events and we want to look professional. So people are happy about it. Short and sweet, Jamie.
Graduations, promotions, and God forbid an officer funeral, long overdue. And great work done by the BPPA. All right, switching gears. I think our last topic, lateral transfers, Larry. I know the commissioner recently put out an invitation to get lateral transfers, asking or inviting officers from other towns and cities to come to Boston and join the BPD. Here's the good news. It absolutely affirms and confirms what you've been saying all along. We're down at least close to 400 police officers. Bad news, our understanding, Larry, is that the department was looking for 50 and they got less than 10. What happened?
Frankly, I think it's just a common sense decision made by police officers throughout the Commonwealth. Why would you leave a department that you're currently working in when you get to go home at the end of your tour? No one is as short-staffed as we are. And I'm in contact with police organizations throughout the Commonwealth. Boston is really, really depleted in its ranks. Then you couple that with 2.5 years of no pay raises, unsafe schools, lack of support from our elected officials and the council, and why would you want to come here? At the bottom of that lateral transfer letter, you have 6 months to comply with the residency issue. One of the most expensive cities in America, 8.5% inflation. But again, no pay raise, no contract, no love, unsafe schools, but yet super expensive housing. And to make it worse, the 6 months to move into the city, Jamie, we all know the 911 operators from SEIU 888 that work upstairs in headquarters taking the 911 calls for service. They were given 3 years reprieve to move into the city. So once again, we're treated with such disrespect. It's a complete slap in the face to any law enforcement officer that works elsewhere. And we have open arms saying, hey, come here for less pay, come here for no contract, come here for unsafe schools. And by the way, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to buy a house if you can afford one.
Yeah, and
what a bunch of great reasons to come work in the BPD.
I mean, no disrespect to the commish. We appreciate the effort, but at the end of the day, you got to have something to entice people to come here. And that's the problem. The grass is greener where they are. It's not here. Bad schools, bad pay, residency requirements, lack of respect from elected officials. That's what needs to be worked on. We got to do more to appreciate and value our workforce.
Yeah, let me just jump in and just say for the people that are non-law enforcement, fire, EMS that are listening, because I know you're out there, we get the emails. The BPPA stance is we embrace lateral transfers. We spoke to Commissioner Cox and former Commissioner Gross about opening up lateral transfers. We need as much help as quickly as we can get it. But we're not going to do it at the detriment to our men and women that are already here. It's insulting.
All right, Larry, time now. I think we're going to take a quick break because after the break, we're going to have our first ever guest on the BPPA podcast, Dan Rea. We're going to invite Dan to get down on the show in just a second. All right, time now for our first ever guest on the BPPA podcast. Our pleasure, of course, to welcome a city kid from Hyde Park, Latin school guy, longtime WBZ reporter, I think 31 years, Larry, which is a pretty long time, but the host of Nightside, and I dare say a friend of law enforcement, Dan Rea, everybody. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the BPPA podcast.
My honor. It's great to talk with you, Jamie and Larry. It's always great to talk with you guys.
So the T-shirt's in the mail, just so you know, now that you've actually come on the show.
That's perfect. I will declare it on my income tax. Don't worry, it's a gift. Okay.
That's right. I was supposed to say that off air. I apologize.
Less than $50. Don't worry, Dan. Less than 50.
All right, Dan. Real quick. I mean, 31 years, city kid, Latin school guy. 31 years at BZ. I got to ask because I'm curious. How did you get into? What drew you to reporting, to journalism, to TV?
Well, it's funny. I really grew up and I wanted to be a sportscaster. Went to Boston State College and realized that when I got out of there, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And had a chance, believe it or not, to write some op-ed pieces for the Boston Globe while I was in law school at Boston University Law School. And then while I was in law school, someone explained to me that there was this small radio station. Of course, there's now a big radio station, WBUR, and I could do an hour a week sort of as mental therapy for the pressures of law school. And I enjoyed doing it. I did a show just for an hour a week. Then there was an opening at WBZ Radio, Saturday night show, auditioned for that, got it.
Wow.
Got out of law school. Once television found out I was a lawyer, they said, come on over to TV. We'll make you a legal editor. I realized it was so much fun on TV and it paid better. I said, how about making me a reporter? They said, we'd love to. That was it.
Awesome. But did I hear you correctly? Did you say you got your start with the Globe?
Believe it or not, I wrote op-ed pieces for the Globe. I'm sure they're not happy about that now, but Tom Winship, who was then the editor of the Globe, gave me an opportunity. They were looking for a kind of a different point of view even back then. And I was young. I was relatively prolific. I think I wrote about somewhere in the vicinity of 65, 70 op-ed pieces for the Globe over a 3-year period.
Impressive. Now, real quick, too, did you have a favorite reporter growing up in the city or during your time in the business? Was there somebody that kind of stood out to you as somebody you wanted to, I guess, follow?
The two reporters at BZ who helped me the most, and I got to know them, obviously, working with them, were Charlie Austin and Peter Mehigan. Peter went to Channel 5 fairly quickly, but I spent a lot of time breaking in with Peter, and Charlie and I became great friends. We worked nights together. We were called Starsky and Hutch back in the day, and he was a wonderful guy.
And I got to imagine you're being a city kid. That had to provide some sort of, I would imagine, or guess, some sort of advantage or benefit, being a kid who grew up in the city, knew the players, knew the people. I mean, how did that help you during your time, and probably still to this day?
Yeah, I had to learn. I mean, I grew up in Reedville, which was part of Hyde Park, and there were parts of the city that when you were a kid from Reedville, you didn't get to East Boston much, didn't get to Charlestown, but I certainly knew kids from Charlestown, had played high school and college sports with kids from other sections of the city, and over time, you begin to realize, hey, this is here and this is here, and there's some reporters coming to Boston, they have a tough time trying to find a State House, never mind City Hall. I knew those locations, and I had friends, and a lot of the people who I bumped into going back in the day, particularly guys in the police department, Gil Griffin, Butchie O'Neill, and guys like that, you develop friendships with. Larry Pacino, Matty Kilroe, they were good friends, and they, I can't quite tell you what they told me, but I could somehow get a piece of information when I would show up at a crime scene. And won Emmy, as a matter of fact, going out on a drug raid with Gil Griffin and Butch O'Neill back in 1982, 83. Sonoma Street was kind of a hot drug spot at the time. And in those days, you could actually go in behind the police once the door was knocked down. That no longer is allowed because of the expectation of privacy of the people inside the drug den. But it was an interesting way to do television back in the day.
Yeah, I think that would be frowned upon today. But I got to say, and Larry's going to say, we love your city kid status. I just think that's a huge feather. And we also, Dan, love your love of police officers. I think anybody who's tuned into the show can pick up on that pretty quickly. And I guess the obvious question would be, where does that respect, admiration, and love of police officers come from for you?
Well, it comes from watching police over the years, up close and personal. If you're a sportscaster and you're courtside at the Celtics game, you have to really begin to appreciate the athleticism of the athletes. And if you're a television broadcaster or a television reporter, as I was, out in the street and watched some very hairy situations, realizing that these police officers, they are the thin blue line that protects me and my family from the criminal element. I also have members of my own family. My brother's a retired state police lieutenant, lots of friends on the City of Boston Police Department, as well as state police and other agencies around the Commonwealth. I mean, if the public could see what you folks go through, they would feel the same way that I do.
Yeah, love it. Couldn't agree. Yeah, your perspective is certainly unique, and you've met a ton of cops over the years, and obviously having the family connection is huge. I mean, I guess I got to ask the question because it's kind of a thorn in our side. In terms of the worst slogans of all time, how bad is defund the police? How bad is that as a slogan?
Well, it's ridiculous is what it is. I mean, first of all, it's easy if you live in, let's say, Weston or one of these very safe suburban communities where crime, it isn't really a problem. It's easy to virtue signal and say, oh, let's defund the police. But if you live in an area where there's criminal activity, you want more police. And I know the people who I know and know well in Boston neighborhoods, they want more police. But for some reason, there's kind of in my opinion, an alliance between progressive politicians and the editorial writers at the Boston Globe who would make believe that everybody in the world wants to defund the police. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last time the Boston Globe wrote something even remotely positive about the Boston Police Department. But we got to ask you too. I mean, there's an interesting case as we talk about the folks who want to defund, dismantle, diminish police officers. Congresswoman, I think from Minnesota. Larry, I think you were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, Angie Craig, U.S. Rep. Angie Craig.
She was a defund the police proponent, and then what happened?
She had a conversion. It was like a religious conversion. She got mugged in her own elevator. And now all of a sudden she doesn't seem to be so much in favor of defunding the police, at least in Washington, D.C. Look, she seemed like an intelligent person. Why would anyone want to defund the police department? I mean, look, if police officers go off the reservation and do something stupid and criminal, as was done in the George Floyd case, the police officers, prosecutors, and he will spend the rest of his life in jail. Just think of the damage that guy did, not only to George Floyd unnecessarily, but also what he did to the reputation of police officers around the country. Also, which was unfair, because the vast majority of police officers, look, there were some crooked people in my business. There were bad people in the media. There were bad people in every walk of life. Bad lawyers, corrupt. There are lawyers who get put away there, but you root out the bad guys. It's like the bad Catholic priest. I had friends of mine who were Catholic priests who were devoted servants of the Catholic Church and servants of good people, and they were great people. They stopped wearing the collar because they couldn't go out to dinner back in the early 2000s without people looking at them and feeling, well, does that person think I'm a pedophile?
Right.
I can't imagine what it is for a police officer that people will look askance and say, hey, is that a Derek Chauvin wannabe? Nothing could be further from the truth for 99.5% of the police officers in this country. And it's just unfair what we have put the police through over the last, 3 years now?
2-3 years. Amen to that. Right. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, Dan Rea here. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be on your show and then to have you on this show. You're always candid, you're honest, you're open, and the most important thing that I think you use is common sense. So when you talk about some of these elected officials, whether it's whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Philadelphia, here in Boston, the flip-flopping is outrageous, and it's really sad that elected officials have to experience violence themselves in order to realize that you can't live in a lawless society and police officers are needed.
Well, they have no integrity. In other words, they're relatively intelligent people. Most of the politicians, not all, but they're relatively intelligent, and they should have the backbone and courage to stand up and say, "Look, we need police. We need to root out the police officers who will abuse their badge or their gun." Everyone's going to agree on that. But the vast number of police officers in this country are out there day and night protecting me and my family, and everyone's family.
Well, I would appreciate it if you continue, as I know you do nightly on your show, but as much as you can, remind your very large audience that the overwhelming majority of police officers in the city of Boston, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, They're well educated. They're well trained. We de-escalate every single night when it is possible to do so.
Yeah.
But we're not secure from a bad apple or two, just like any other profession. So as good as we are, I always say we strive to be better. We train to be better, and it's just important for the general public to know how great.
Well, I think President Obama said that himself here in Boston a few years ago. That we had the best police force in America, the best trained police force in America, and I don't understand why these politicians, they basically believe that within the Democratic Party you got to be progressive, and if you're not, you're particularly subject to someone challenging you in a primary. They are in it to win it, but in it to win it for themselves, not in it to protect their constituents.
Lack of courage. That's what it is, Dan. Lack of courage to speak the truth and use common sense.
Dan, go ahead, Dan.
No, but I'm saying, and the police have to summon that courage every day, because every day police go to work, they have no idea what they're going to face. They have no idea what they're going to face. They have no idea if they're going to come home that night. Politicians need to put themselves, do some ride-arounds. Have the politicians do some ride-arounds, and see what police. It's like when I do my show, I have no idea who's on the other end of the line. Who's the next caller? Let's go. I gotta take the call and I gotta deal with it. But I'm not in any physical danger. Police officers, as we have found all too often around this country, are often in physical danger, and it takes a lot of backbone, a lot of courage to do what you guys do. And I will defend police across the board. I will criticize them, and certainly when I see something that goes wrong and is going to hurt police officers, I will be there to criticize the individuals who go off the reservation. But I will defend the good police officers and the integrity of police officers as long as I have a microphone.
Hey, I'm going to leave you with this too. I'm sure you probably already saw it, but Sunday night, apparently some great police work by our officers over in B3 in Mattapan as they arrested an individual that was armed with not one but two illegal firearms. And lo and behold, he's part of the Boston's new street outreach advocacy and response program.
Is this a city employee, you mean?
It's a city employee, yes. And
do as I say. Don't do as I do. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to dump all over anyone that is working for the city and for the general population of Boston. We all care about our great city, but it's another embarrassment. It's another black eye on City Hall when they try to hire people that are not trained as police officers to do police work.
Who think they can do it better?
Yeah.
Who think they can do it better than the trained pros?
But if you haven't seen that, I figure you might want to look down.
I will check that out. I appreciate the tip, guys.
Well, Dan, I just want to say you did a great job. You didn't seem too nervous. Hopefully, we didn't intimidate you too much. But honestly, we've heard you a bunch of times. We appreciate your advocacy. And again, you're a city kid. You get it. You grew up with police officers. You had the chance to rub elbows with police officers during your time as a journalist, and we certainly appreciate the support you give to the hardworking men and women of the BPD. So thank you, Dan, for being our first ever guest.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dan. Thanks so much.
And Larry, I am honored. Stay well, stay safe, and stay authentic.
Likewise. Talk soon, Dan.
You're the best. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Dan Rea. You can hear Dan Rea Monday through Friday on BZ Radio. He's the host of Nightside, 8 p.m. to midnight. Again, we can't thank Dan enough for being, the first ever guest of the BPPA podcast. And Larry, that's the show. Closing thought.
Once again, Jamie, just want to take a minute to say thank you to the men and women that are taking those calls for service out there on a daily basis. They're doing an outstanding job. Be safe and make sure you go home.
Yep, could agree, Larry. We got the best police officers in the nation. That's the show. He's Larry Calderone. I'm Jamie Kenneally. Stay safe, everybody.